Hi, and welcome to the EvilTester show. And in this episode, we're going to talk about manual testing. Top 3 phrases that should carry trigger warnings for people in the test community, and they are manual testing, test automation, quality assurance. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about manual testing, so that's your trigger warning. And I'm going to talk about what we might want to say instead of manual testing. So those 3 phrases, manual testing, test automation, and quality assurance, have at least one thing in common. And the thing that I notice about them is that they're all noun phrases. When we use them in a sentence, we use them as a noun. What are you doing? I'm doing manual testing. What are you doing? I'm doing quality assurance. What are you doing? I'm doing test automation. And they're things, and they're not processes. In that form, quality assurance, manual testing, test automation, it's not stated as a process. But of course, they are processes. So it's much better or more useful, I think, to describe them as verb phrases and to communicate them as something that we would do. So I actively try to think in terms of verb phrases to try and keep my communication simpler and less vague. I mean, I still manage to talk in very vague terms, but I want to talk in terms of processes, active engagement of how I do things. I don't really want to police the language that other people use. I do want to police the language that I use, and particularly how I model things in my head. So I have a technique that I'll explain that helps me deal with these things. So a heuristic for spotting noun phrases. If a phrase X describes something that you do, but in order to use it, you have to say, I'm doing X, then it's probably a noun phrase. I'm doing the dishes instead of I'm washing the dishes. And also that has immediate parallels into testing. I'm doing the dishes. Oh, are you putting them in the dishwasher? Test automation. No, I'm washing them by hand in the sink. By hand. Manually. Synonymous. So washing the dishes is a verb phrase that describes a process better than I'm doing the dishes. The dishes. Noun phrase. Set of nouns. Things. So one of the things that people say as an objection to manual testing is that, well, it's all just testing, so just say testing. There are a lot of reasons why that's a good idea, but it hides a lot of nuances about what I'm doing. Testing is a verb, so I might be testing manually, by hand, for performance characteristics. I might be testing while automating. I might be testing from hand-drawn state charts. I might be testing old bugs that we think we fixed. The main thing is that as a verb phrase, I can add all that additional descriptive words after the concept of testing. And manually seems to be an okay fit there. It works in my head. I do have a lot of sympathy for this view of just say testing, because most of the time when I see videos or blog posts about manual testing, they're really just describing a generic testing process. They're not really describing testing manually at all. And they're not describing how they test. It's just a generic start with requirements, write some scenarios, blah, blah, blah. And possibly good that they don't describe it as testing, because what they're describing is a horrible approach to collaborative software testing on a project. In fact, what they're really describing is a model of expensive outsourced testing. So maybe say that. Instead of manual testing, say expensive outsourced testing. What are you doing? Oh, I'm just doing some expensive outsourced testing. No, don't do that. Can't you just test it manually instead? It's really important to laugh at your own jokes. Otherwise, no one notices their jokes. And they just think that, well, who knows what they think? We don't know what other people think. This is how I think, in terms of trying to think in terms of verb phrases. So another objection is, but we don't say manual programming. Well, no, because programming is a verb and we haven't really automated it very well. But people now do say things like, I'm programming using ChatGPT. I'm programming using Copilot. Now that these activities are starting to have more automated processes behind them, people are now adding adverbs to that verb programming. And it used to be the case that what you had instead of automated programming or manual programming was code generation. And that never really took off as much. We still use it, but it doesn't really count. So people don't tend to think in terms of manual programming. It was testing. It was the test community that messed up so badly by putting words like manual testing, test automation, quality assurance, by allowing people to talk about testing as quality assurance. What a mistake. My goodness. But it could be worse, right? People might talk about manual QA. That's more triggering for me. So the helpful bit of this podcast, the aim is to try and have something that's helpful, not just a moan. And adverbs help me focus. Adverbs help me focus and avoid my biases. So I'd avoid doing manual testing, and instead I'm testing this manually. I haven't decided if I will automate this yet, and I'm not using any tooling just now because I'm exploring the high-level functionality, whatever. I mean, that's a long adverb. That's an adverb phrase that's about 6 sentences, but that's okay. That's how I try to communicate in more detail. So I do have that word manually in my vocabulary when I need to explicitly state that I'm not automating something. I use the word for clarity, but it's an adverb rather than trying to make a normalization out of testing. But I mostly use it silently when I'm thinking to help me avoid biases. I use it when I'm thinking about what I'm going to do, because I might jump to automating as I'm testing. So me thinking I'm testing manually helps me focus on the higher level coverage and keep my hands off code. By thinking I'm testing manually, it means I don't jump into deeper interrogation style technical testing using tooling. So I don't drive deep into the HTTP requests and see what's going on and look at the headers and try and fiddle with them, because I'm testing manually. So I don't add the tools to the depth that would be required for more tool-assisted style testing. So I might use the word in response to a call for clarity. So I'm testing the file processing that we just introduced. Oh, are you automating it? No, I'm testing it manually. Or I might say, no, I'm testing it by hand. The adverb is there for clarity, to distinguish from the process of automating, because we've messed up the communication of testing for so long that sometimes people hear testing and they think test automation. But test automation is a normalization. Testing is a process. Test automation is a thing. We automate. That's different. One of the things I find interesting is because I'm a native English speaker, we were never really taught the grammatical rules in the same way that people who are learning English as a second language do. So for me, the concept of noun phrase or verb phrase are probably a bit more vague than someone who's learning the language directly. So for me, it's just, is it being used as a verb? Is it being used as a noun? And it also depends in English how we phrase questions and statements, because testing is a noun and a verb. It can be used in both ways. Programming can be used as a noun or a verb. And that's where some of the ambiguity and confusion comes in. If we use it in the context as a noun, then that's when we get into trouble, because testing isn't the root anymore. Testing is a thing, and what makes it important is the description, the adjectives that we put in place. If we want testing to be the root of everything that we do, then we use testing as the verb. Then we describe it in more detail and the nuances around it. As an experiment, I went into ChatGPT, and if I phrase my questions as, is this a noun phrase or a verb phrase? And say, manual testing, it will say, it's a noun phrase. If I ChatGPT in a different way and I say, is manual testing a noun phrase? Then sometimes it will say, yes, manual testing can be considered a noun phrase. Yes, manual testing is a noun phrase. No, manual testing is not a noun phrase. It is a noun followed by a present participle acting as an adjective. So we have the nuances around the language. And that, I think, is what is really important to understand. If we want to be clear in our communication and we don't want people to misunderstand testing concepts or conflate testing concepts with generic software engineering approaches like automated execution, creating code and systems that will automate other systems. Those are approaches for helping us achieve coverage, but aren't necessarily testing. We use them when we are testing because it's a valid way of approaching the achievement of coverage. But we have to be clear and careful about how we communicate because of the ambiguity that's present in the language that we use. And the language that we use is English. It's not specific to the domain of software testing. So it has a very generic interpretation. And the more that we get in the habit of using the standard dictionary definitions for the words, and we apply them in ways that are simple and easy to communicate with less chance of misunderstanding, I think we'll be better off. And that's really why I try to communicate in terms of a verb and process approach. In fact, process is probably a better way of describing things than verb, because verb starts making it dependent upon the English language definitions and the sentence structure. But process is something that we do, it's something that we engage in, and it's something that we can communicate in clear ways because it varies depending on the context, the environment we're working in, who is going to be doing this process, who's going to be engaged in it, who's going to be carrying it out, how it is being carried out, what tools we are using, how long we have to do this, what we are attempting to achieve at the end of it. That whole parcel can't really be summed up in one word like testing, or a phrase like manual testing, or test automation, or quality assurance. We need to elaborate on these words in order to communicate. And that's really the fundamental point. And I try to do that by putting testing first and then describing how and why I'm testing. And clearly, if we had manual testing, then that might lead to automated testing. But if we have testing manually, that doesn't necessarily lead to testing automated, because that doesn't make any sense. So you have to, the verb phrases help avoid, I think, that instant conflation of ideas. So I use this to help me, and it does help me. Instead of using noun phrases, use verb phrases. Have the core verb testing, because our aim is testing. When we're testing, we're testing. We focus on testing, and we have lots of tools and nuances and approaches for how we go about doing that. And sometimes I do it manually. To be honest, I have a bigger aversion to people talking about quality assurance than I do to manual testing, allowing themselves to be called QAs. What does that mean? To doing QA. It's not doing QA. But different words trigger different people, and I find that talking in terms of processes helps me talk in more detail about what we do, and that improves communication and avoids the conflation. So that's just a very small episode on manual testing. It might have triggered you. That's fine. Think what you want. Keep that in your head. Just do some testing. However you approach that, it's fine. And never ever do manual QA. Remember, you can sign up at EvilTester.com or wherever podcasts are available. And if you like this, tell your friends. Go off to EvilTester.com. If you don't like this, then don't tell your friends. That wouldn't be helpful.